What is up, guys? Zack here from the Chaos Galaxy, and today I'm going to be showing you another episode of my old TCGs. And in my first episode of this series, I showed you my first ever trading card game. This is actually season 2 of my first ever trading card game that I made, called Little Doods. And today I'm showing you season 3, which I made when I was about between ages 12 and 14. I worked on this one for a while. So I do have about 150 cards for it, so I might do this as a 2-part video so I can show you all the cards. I'll show you about 70 of them today, and then the rest in a future video. If you don't know the rules to Little Doods, basically it's really simple. You and your opponent each split a deck of cards in 2, so you have an equal amount, and then both players will pick the top card off their deck, and whichever card has the highest score will win, and that card will go in a winner pile, and the card with the weakest score will lose and go in the loser pile. And then at the end of the game, whoever has the most cards in their winner pile wins. So in this example, Thunder Lion with 790 score, I didn't really have a name for that stat, will beat Wagabaggle, who only has 280. However, it did get a bit more complicated in this version of the game because I created special abilities for creatures to make things a bit more interesting. So I'm going to show you all the cards I have here. So first one, obviously the main card in the game and the most powerful card. The game's named after him. It's, of course, Little Dude, whose art is still pretty similar to the original copy. And then, obviously, his face is pictured on the back. So yeah, 1,000 score was the highest and 100 score was the lowest. And then the next card I'm going to show you is Baby Dude, which is a baby version of Little Dude. And he has 500 score, so he's about average. And his ability reads, if you have Little Dude in your deck, you can choose to play it in your next turn. So if you have Little Dude, then Baby Dude can bring him out straight away, which actually doesn't really make a difference at all, because it doesn't matter when you play Little Dude, like you're still just going to win one round with him anyway. So yeah, Baby Dude's kind of useless. Next up, we have a card that's in Chaos Galaxy, and it's the card number 1 for the Chaos Galaxy, which is Blocky, and he has a really good ability, whereas if your last card won its battle, then this card automatically wins its battle. So say you had Little Dude last turn and it was going up against a Baby Dude, then this Little Dude would win, and then if you got Blocky in your next turn, regardless of what card your opponent has, Blocky would automatically win. So he's really good in this game. And he has a basic score of 630 anyway, so that's good. Next up, we've got Bubbles. You can't really read his score very well, but it says 340. Next up is Hugable, who has 750 score, so he's pretty good. Then we have Anagana, 370. Then Jet Aligalob, who has 440 power, and his ability reads, other special powers don't work on this card. Next up, this was I used to play this with my cousin Benji. Shout out to Benji if you're watching. And this was his favourite card. It was called Teardrop Dragon, 940, so he's really powerful. And he has a pretty cool artwork, considering that I drew him when I was like 12 or 13. Next up, another fan favourite from Little Dudes, Chaos Galaxy, and that is De, a very strong card from the planet Barrow, and he's got 770 power in Little Dudes, so he's still pretty good then. Next up, Gomp, he was my younger brother's favourite. Then Itsy Bitsy, he featured in the first season of Little Dudes, and he's got himself a special ability now, which reads, if your last card won its battle, this card gains an extra 100 points, sorry. And if your last card lost, then he loses 200 points. And Furry, 400. Also, I really like a lot of the backgrounds that I made for this game. Next up is Fashni. I don't know where I got a lot of these names from. It's a common theme throughout my old TCGs. And when this card wins, your opponent's next card score becomes 410. Next up, Golb. And then this, I actually made some archetypes. So there was, I don't know what to call these guys, but there was Schlurpy, Sleepy, Schloipy. And then there was Schloopy, who was actually my favourite out of all these guys, but I lost him for some reason. And also the artworks like fit together. I think Schlumpy went there. But then anyway, the boss monster for them was Schlumpy, who has 920 score, which is really good. And he says you can only play him if you have Schloipy, Schlurpy or Schlompy in your winner pile, or by the ability of Sleepy here. and if you didn't have any of these, then you couldn't play Schlumpy and he'd automatically lose his round. So he's a really good card, but you need a requirement to play him, which is bad. But yeah, I like these guys, and I'll try and find Schloopy. Then we have Pumpkin, I Can See You, which says, if this card wins, you look at the top 2 cards of yours and your opponent's deck and put them in any order you want. So he's really good. Next up, Storastica, who had 600. Cloudy Bob. And he says, when you play this card, take the top card of your loser pile, halve its score, and add it onto this card's score. Okay, so that was quite complicated, but say you have a card on the top of your loser pile with 400 power, then you'd halve 400, which is 200, and then add that onto Cloudy Bob's score. Which sounds like quite a good ability, but Cloudy Bob's original score is only 200, so it's not very good, really. Next up, Clon Goop, 510. And then Jar has Beast, he was a really strong one. I like his background as well, and he has 930. Shooby Wob, again a feature in the first Little Dude season, 500. Wombam, 650. Then this one, Pronquentius Flandorb, 880. And his ability doesn't really make sense, but it said you can have 3 copies of him in your deck. I guess I put a limit saying you could only have 1 copy of each card in your deck normally, but you can have 3 Pronquentius Flandorb in, which is good because he has quite a good score. Next up, Mamdakadak. I don't even ask. Oh, and this guy, this was like my boss monster. Snip Snap, 950, because I gave like different decks and of all different cards to my cousins and friends, and we used to play, and like Snip Snap was my boss card, or one of them. And yeah, he's really good, 950. Then here's another archetype, it's the Blockery archetype. We have Blockery A, Blockery B, whoops. They sort of like build up, like made of building blocks, and they like build up until they get really strong. Blockery C, Blockery D. None of these have abilities, by the way, apart from Blockery Z, who was the boss one. And it said, if this card wins, you put all Blockery cards from your loser pile into your winner pile. So that's really good. Like you can, if this guy wins, and he has 880 power, so he probably will, and all these guys lost, then you get an automatic like extra 4 points to the game, which could like make the difference between winning and losing. So yeah, the Blockeries were really good. Scourakapon, 420. Oh, 420 blazing, yeah. If I'd have known what 420 blazing was when I was 12, I probably would have made an unrelated card. But he's just like a weird dinosaur. And Thunderlion, who I showed you before. Then we have Gobog, who looks pretty scary actually. And he said, if this card wins, your next card gets an extra 100 points. And he's got 540. And there's Bubo. And then, oh, this was cool, this was one of my cards as well. Rainbow Lord Bingle. And he said, if your opponent's name bar is the following colour, use the correct power. So, if your opponent's name bar is blue, for example, like Bubo, you'd read through this and go, okay, so blue is 300, which isn't very good. But then if you get a score like, I can't read what that says, pink. So if your opponent's card is furry, for example, then that means Rainbow Lord Bingle would get 900 power, which is really good. So he's a really cool card. And I think it was a really good idea that I made. Next up is Boingy Morb, 170 power, which isn't good, but if he wins, then your next card's power automatically becomes 990, which is amazing. Or actually, it might not be amazing, because if you have Little Dude, then it would be a bad thing. Then we have the Trickster. I know this is weird. I don't remember this guy really. You must play this card and 1 card from your loser pile face down, shuffle them, and then your opponent picks one. If it's this card, what? If it's this card, then this card and the 1 card from your loser pile win. If it's the other card, that card loses, then play a normal round. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Bit of a confusing card though. Next is Dakananana, 420 again, and it says if this card wins, all your card scores get an extra 30 power for the rest of the game, so he's really good. Next up we've got Crabacabble. Oh, this is one of my favourites as well. Random Dead Guy, 140. Okay, we've got another archetype now. The abots. So we have Radio Abot with 280, Lampabot 270, Phonabot, which is 260, Clockabot, which is 250. Oh, and Chainsaw Bot was 290. So he's the strongest one, but they're all pretty weak. Okay, so you had all these weaker bot cards, and then you used them to power up this guy, who was, I think he was probably my favourite artwork out of all the cards I'm going to show you in this video, and he was Super Bot Abot, and he gets an extra 100 power for every Abot card you have, so that's like in your deck, in your dead pile, in your lose pile, in your winner pile, everything. And he's one of the few cards that can actually become stronger than Little Doods because of his ability. In fact, I think he could potentially be the strongest card in the game because he can go up to 1,100 with all 5 different abots. But yeah, I love this guy, although it's a really crappy strategy having all these cards lose just so you can win one round with this guy. But anyway, I liked him. Next up we got Frostboz, then Zindagao, who had 430, Manabiti, who, he has a horrible background, that pink and turquoise, I don't know what I was thinking. But anyway, 190 and special powers don't work on him. Then Mr. Magic, who's another question mark card, and it says, this card score is the amount of special power cards you have in your deck times 100. And if you have none, then this card's score becomes 200, but the max score he can have is 1,000. So he can't go too ridiculously OP. Next up we have Handy, 520. Then Flangle Dibgon, 390, and if this card battles a card with a special power, then this card automatically wins. So he's really good, and I think his background's really nice as well. Then Fat Dragon, following on from Fat Man from the original Little Doods, and he's only got 200, but it says, if you have this card and Fat Man in your deck, then double both their scores, so you can go to a massive 400. Crazy. Zansky, who's another question mark stat card, says this card's score is equal to the number of cards in your winner pile times 50, whereas max score is 1,000. So if you have 10, then he gets 500. Oh, here it is, Fat Man, everyone's favourite, 130. And then Clibunk, who's only 220. Then Mordefimbim Rimdophilisk, I remember that name, 680, so he's pretty good. Perilinab, 350, and if this card wins, you must swap your next card with another card from your loser pile, but you get to pick the card in your loser pile, so it's pretty good. Then, then there was the last archetype I think I'm going to show you today. They were like turtle things, although their names are like really hard to say. So this is Lavertle, and it says if this card battles with a green name card, then he wins. Then we have Triowittle, it was supposed to be tree, and if he battles a card with a red name, then he wins. They all have the theme of like battling different coloured card names. So there's the tree one, the lava one, and then Roboittle, and if he battles a card with a blue name, then he wins. And then Wetturtle, if he battles a card with a grey name, then he wins. So these guys are pretty cool. They don't really work together, but they all have similar abilities, so they're part of an archetype. Next up, Giggy Snake, another one from the original Little Doods, 830, and if your last card lost, then he automatically loses. So he's got a good score, but his ability isn't great. Next up we have Zrob, 340, then Wagumak, who has a card in Chaos Galaxy currently, which is actually called Waku Man. Then Tonex, who you should know who he is from the Chaos Galaxy. Then Big Hands, 420 again, and if this card wins, you get to choose the next card that you play from your deck. So he's good. Then Spiky, who's 820, he was one of my favourites too, I think he's really cool. Then Mool, who is Squiddle in Chaos Galaxy, although this is like a fire and water type one, which doesn't really make sense, but anyway, he's got 740, so he's pretty good. Then Tononon, you'll know him, 660. In the first Little Doods, he was actually 1,000, so he was the best card. I brought him down in this version, and then he's also in the Chaos Galaxy too. Next up, Moffofofoli, 560, and then if your next card has a special power, it gets cancelled. Then getting into the last 3 cards, now we have Waggibaggle, 280. Then Kabuari, who has 120, and if he wins, then all the scores for all of your cards for the rest of the game, their powers become 1,000. So you can't. It's very difficult to win a battle with him. But if you do, then you've pretty much won the game, unless he's like one of your last cards. And then the last card, of course, is the worst card in every game I make, and that is, you know what it's going to be already. It's Slush. 100 power, the worst card in the game. However, I took some sympathy with Slush in this game and gave him the best ability out of any card game I've ever made. And if he wins a battle, you automatically win the game. But because he only has 100 power, he's never going to win. So I think he did actually win once. There were like a couple of ways that you could win with him. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more on this segment. I really love showing you guys my old trading card games, and I've still got so many more to show. I don't think I'm even halfway through yet, and this is like, what, episode 6? 7? I can't remember. Anyway, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. Next video, I should have one of the starter decks for Chaos Galaxy ready, which I'm so excited about. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.